James Dutton for Pro Boxing Fans. Delighted to be joined on Zoom today with Barry Jones. Barry, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Not too bad. We're getting to the end of this sabbatical, I guess you could call it. So, looking to get back to work, hopefully.
This is it. I mean, how you found it? I spoke to a lot of fighters, a lot of trainers, itching to get back in the gym. Yourself, pundit and commentary. How have you found lockdown?
Yeah, difficult. It's been nice to spend time with the kids, and also, a nightmare spending time with the kids at the same time. Yeah, and you miss boxing. Like any of us guys working in boxing. If you've been around there, like high up, for instance, since you were a child, it's the only thing I know. So when you're away, it's you miss it. You take it for granted, and I think something like a gap like this, you realise how blessed you are to be involved in something you love to do. So yeah, I'll be thankful to get back to work.
Definitely. Let's talk about, obviously, lockdown. The fighters themselves, they've had to stay in shape. And with the top ranked shows, we've seen a couple of shocks in the last week. So with Mike Pliano last week and Joshua Franco last night, shocked Andrew Maloney. What do you make of that? Obviously, does it show who's staying ready and things like that?
I think the Franco shock wasn't a massive shock, maybe. I think, he maybe was the underdog, but I wasn't wholly surprised. I think Golden Boy, put him on another show, I think with the confidence that he could get the win, to be fair. Another promoter's show, of course. I think it's difficult to stay motivated. It's like that with boxing in general, because it used to be in the 90s. I'm not sure. I suppose the same as now. You're very long periods of your career, you're without a date. So you don't know when you're going to fight. So you'll have your last fight, you'll have a couple of weeks off. And unless you're a huge name who has, pretty much the promoter getting you in the office straight away, looking at what's next, then you're sort of just waiting to get on a show. If you're an undercard fighter, even if you're winning titles in an undercard fighter, you're still waiting, for bigger shows to be announced. Hopefully you can get on that show. So the waiting game and not knowing when the next fight's coming is quite a regular occurrence and a normal scenario for boxers. The problem you have with some of the bigger name fighters is they don't know when they were going to go back, and without these bigger name fighters to drive the sport forward, then we go down the tier levels of the public's interest. That's the worry. But this, like all the sports in the UK, we're waiting for football to come back. That's come back, and that looks quite. I know it's an adjustment without a crowd, but it's been quite successful. I think now, and Frank Warren obviously is going to be the first British promoter coming back in the UK, so that'll be exciting. And then obviously Eddie Hearn's going to follow with his fights in his back garden, and I believe it's a huge back garden that will be. But yeah. So and then we'll be back. Then MCK are going to start doing shows as well, I think, in July, and then hopefully once they get crowds, then the smaller promoters who really are the lifeblood of the sport. That's the worry that we have, that they disappear and never come back.
I was going to say to you, obviously, you mentioned a small hall. It sounds like, talking to a few small hall promoters, they reckon March next year at the earliest. How vital is small hall boxing to the sport?
It's huge. Not as much as it used to be, I'll be honest, because they're picking fighters now from because we had that academy in Sheffield, with the top class amateurs, where they build fighters from there. But traditionally, a big promoter wouldn't always have a fighter from his first fight. I was listening to the Frank Warren podcast the other day, walking the dog, and there was Nazim Hamid. Frank never had him. Okay, he went with Barry Hearn, who was still a big player even at that point at 92. He was still a big player then, but he went with him and then Mickey Duff for a little while, and then went off to Frank. So they didn't have him from day one. So, and me myself, I went with the small local promoter manager, and then went to Frank when I was sort of like 13 fights or 12 fights undefeated. So the smaller promotions can build a fighter up. Josh Warrington, and another guy who, I know he's with Eddie, but he was being managed by Steve Wood. Steve Wood produces a lot of top quality fighters, but he has them on his own shows first. He builds them up, and without that, then it's a struggle. And some of these fighters will never fight again. That's the sad part. If they have to wait till March, some of these promoters will just be out of the business. Some of these fighters will just get another job and then forget about boxing, and that's the worry.
Definitely. You mentioned as well, behind closed doors, how much will that affect a fighter?
again, it depends on that fighter. I think if you've got a guy who's boxed at the highest level as an amateur, then he's been in international competitions, then he will cope with it better. If he's only been pro for maybe 3 or 4 years, because he's used to boxing in Bulgaria on a Wednesday afternoon with nobody but your teammates to call you on, even if, and most of the time they're not calling you on because they're having their lunch or they've stayed in the wherever they're staying, their facility where they're staying to train because they're fighting tomorrow to lose weight and so on and so forth. So for top international fighters, they're used to boxing in empty arenas until the finals, until the medal stages, and even then they're not full. So they'll be used to it. It'll be adjustment for that. Some of the other fighters have only been around big crowds, then if you've been a pro for a long time, then you can't imagine Josh Warrington boxing in an empty arena, for instance, who sells tremendous amounts of tickets. How does he go from being from that level for so long, but selling out to stadiums and arenas to now boxing in a studio or someone's back garden, as it would be now, because obviously he's with Matchroom with 20, 30 people there. That'll be unjust. So them sort of fighters will not fight until there's a crowd back. But it affects people differently. I think a crowd gives you an edge, the nervous factor, that thing that you need, but you have to adjust. You're a professional athlete at the end of the day. It's your job and you have to learn to adjust. So we might get a few upsets, but also it gives some of these other fighters now, like Brad Foster's going to be the first main, I think he's going to be the top of the bill, the first show back. What a spotlight for him, because everyone's going to be watching this one for sure. So if he can perform, then he elevates himself up the ladder and up the pay scale, which is the most important part.
You mentioned Josh Warrington in his fight in front of a crowd, of course, Anthony Joshua will as well, these big pay-per-view names. How frustrating would it be for them to have to wait because we don't know when it's going to be when this crowd's back?
Yeah, I think that's an issue. I think they're looking for the end of the year. I think, and I see with Joshua, you can take him abroad. You can take him somewhere else where restrictions are looser and TV's God for him anyway. That's where the main money comes from. And also they'll pay the site fees like they do in America, but in Saudi and other countries will pay silly money for it. They won't pay that for the Josh Warringtons. They need to box at home. That's the problem. So it's difficult for them, I think, not knowing when they're going to fight. And also momentum's a great thing in sport. And when you get into the end of your, not quite the end of your career, but say a Josh Warrington who's had a fantastic career, but he hasn't got that long. He's young and he's fresh. But I mean, he's had a few fights now. He's had some decent hard scraps. So he's only going to be thinking a few more years, and he's bowing out, at the end of a successful and a fantastic career. So he won't want to wait any longer. Tyson Fury's got that tremendous momentum. Anthony Joshua, he has that momentum off that good win off Ruiz, so he'll want to get back in. That's frustrating for him. He felt like he got back some momentum, some of the public's trust, after losing against Ruiz in the first fight, and he'll want to show that he's back where he belongs. So yeah, it's a frustrating time for everyone, of course. It just magnifies with the guys at the top, but then the guys at the bottom are saying, well, they don't have to worry about paying their bills or feeding their kids because they got millions or hundreds of thousands, depending on who they are. Where the guys lower down, who are still decent names, don't earn a penny. They live, they're boxing for them is a job. So it might be a good wage if they're boxing for lower titles, but it's only a wage. And like me and you, when you're not working, you need that. So they spread their 3 fights a year, if they're lucky. They spread that throughout the year, and that's all. It ends up just being a good wage rather than being, money you can just go and buy jets or big houses or whatever you want to do with the other guys. It's not the same for the other fellas. So there's only like about 1% who earn enough to sit on their backside and wait it out. That's the problem with this sport.
No, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about, there were some pre-lockdown fights that were arranged. So, for example, Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders, Lee Selby, George Kambosos, and Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez. Do you think we'll see these fights rearranged, or could we lose out on these completely?
The Selby fight will happen, I think, to be honest, definitely, almost definitely, 100% that will happen, unless somebody gets injured, of course, unless it's stupid or another one of these second wave or whatever, this coronavirus. Saunders is a worry. that he doesn't get his shot. You know, I think there's a bigger money, there's a bigger pot with the Golovkin third fight. That's the worry there for Canelo. And so I don't know about that. Or someone else might come. Like, there's so many fighters now looking to try and get in there. Canelo's the cash cow. You know, you're doing 5-10 times as much as what you're doing anywhere else. So anyone want to fight him. But he still might, if he's still in the running, but he's still in the aim and he's still a good undefeated fighter, and Canelo will want to do that. Yeah, what was the other fight?
Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah, that's a great, and that could happen, but I don't know whether that will. No, I don't know. I think Lopez might look somewhere else. I think he's all up for this, but I just think he might look somewhere else now. I think.
Talk about, obviously, with Billy Joe Saunders especially, a lot of people are saying, well, now it's going to be domestic opponents, put them in McCann Smith. But again, you've got the problem with, are they going to fight without a crowd? Let's talk about the domestic dust-ups that you would like to see that are realistic.
Oh, I made a list. Can I find it?
Absolutely.
Let me find it. I made a list on Facebook about fantasy fights, domestic fights with this lockdown coming up, and what they would be. And I think they were fantastic. And so you could just wait for like an hour while I find the. But it was a good list, and not all of them could be made. But I thought the cross promotions, but some of them obviously couldn't be made. But they would. It's a fantastic. Sorry, I know this is a great interview. There you go. I made the list. Khalid Yafai versus Charlie Edwards. Again, I don't know how that would work now with Charlie sort of on the other side of the street now, but Jay Harris, Tommy Frank. Tommy Frank's obviously a Sheffield boy. I think that's a fight that could be made. It's a good scrap. Liam McGregor versus Cash Farouk, the second fight. If they can get that on again, that would be fantastic. Patrick Ward versus Paul Butler. It's a good fight. I think Tommy Patrick Ward's on his way to looking for the world honours, and Paul's looking to get back in the mix again with that. Brad Foster versus Gamal Yafai was a good fight. Ryan Walsh, Jazza Dickens, which is one that's obviously for the golden contract, because that's a fantastic fight. I think Jazz has been brilliant. I love Jazza Dickens. Ryan Walsh is a quality operator, and I give him a stick at times because I think, as good as he is, he hasn't been busy enough in some fights. But in this golden contract, he's changed his attitude. The way he throws the shots, he's a little bit busier. He's looking for always land that big flashy shot, but he's doing a bit more work behind that. And I think he's a much better fighter, and that makes that a great fight. Kakachi versus Archie Sharp. I know Kakachi's going to be boxing Liam Woodstock now, isn't he? Which is a fantastic fight. But I thought the Sharp fight, I thought that would be, because Sharp's wants to fight for a world title, and the way he fights, he's a boxer by trade, but he's looking to knock people out. Kakachi can hit with either hand, so I think that's a really good fight. I think it's just a great list. I should be a matchmaker. I got Luke Campbell versus Lee Selby as well, which is domestic, without crowds. I got Liam Woodstock versus Sam Bowen. Two guys, who are just looking to get back up, after defeats, after defeats at a championship level, looking to get back in that mix. I think that would be a barnstormer. Joe Cordina versus Zelfa Barrett. Now, Zelfa Barrett's gone over to Matchroom. I think him and Cordina would be a great fight. It depends what weight they're at. I think, a super feather or lightweight, I think either one would be. I think they both could make either weight, at the struggle. So I think that's a good fight. And I think the Fitzgerald Fowler, the second fight, that'd be a fight that could be made and should be made. I think, Fowler gets loads of stick. I know, I'm not massive on social media, but I know he gets loads of stick because he's quite vocal. And he winds people up, and people want to see him get beat. And I don't know the kid from Adam. I don't really mix with fighters at all. I don't know Scott Fitzgerald, but it was a close fight, a real competitive fight. So he got beat, and he did lose, but he didn't get battered. And it's a fight, and it was a good fight for the fans. I think it's a fight we'd like to see again. I think there's another good fight as well as I put down, which was a long time. Obviously happened a long time ago, but would be a more intriguing fight now, is Ryder and Fielding, if they could box again. Because John Ryder was just fantastic against Callum Smith. He really was. And obviously Fielding's won a world title against Tyrone Ziega, and did fantastic. And obviously cashed in on Canelo, which why wouldn't you? And he didn't look great. He did MTK show. He didn't look absolutely fantastic in one of his comeback fights. It was only like a little warmer fight. But the finish He knocked this fella out. It was just horrible. It was a great shot right off the back. I think his back was on the ropes and just caught with a beauty of a shot. So that just shows with fielding, whatever happens, he still has that raw power to put you to sleep. So I think him and Ryder is a great scrap. And we can go on at the Yard, Lyndon Arthur. I think if they can remake that, I think that's a good. And that's a fight that I don't think either one sells loads of tickets. I'm not saying they're not ticket sellers, but I don't think either one sells a bundle of tickets. So that's a TV fight. I think Yard will demand more money now because of obviously the Kovalev, when even though he lost, he showed a quality in his work that we hadn't seen up until that point. So I think that fight would be a good fight for TV.
Absolutely.
I'll stop there, I guess. Otherwise, I'll go in all day.
Let's move on to a recent announcement. Not Lee Selby, Andrew Selby announced his retirement. What do you make of that?
I put something on Facebook saying Andrew Selby is just a perfect example that talent doesn't guarantee you success. In any, he had loads of success as an amateur, one of the most successful amateurs this country's ever produced. But as a pro, it didn't quite work out for him. He had a lot of bad luck, and a lot of things in his personal life went dramatically wrong for him. And and with the deaths in the family, and and it troubled him. It troubled Lee, but Lee coped with it better. I don't know why. It's just that just happens sometimes. I don't think he struggled with it. I think struggled with what's happening to his brother and his mum, or it was a massive part of their life, no real vocal support for them, and so he struggled like anyone would. I don't think he really recovered from that, and it's a shame because he had all the talent in the world, but talent is a small piece of the pie. That's what I said. It's a small piece of the pie. There's so many other things you need: determination, dedication, application. But the biggest piece is luck. Right place at the right time. People in your weight, or people not in your weight, depending on how good you are. Like Joe Kawasaki didn't have the names in his weight to elevate into that Eubank and Ben financial rewards. He had no one around him. He had no rivals. But also, he could dominate for all these years because of that as well. But he might have maybe lost the fight. Who knows? He still would have been a great fighter, but he might have picked up a loss and carried on and won again. And also, like someone like me, my weight 2 years after I'd lost with the brain scans and went to regain my title, my weight was phenomenal. But when I boxed for my world title, my weight was relatively weak. So it was luck. And then bad luck when I wanted to regain it, you had to fight this Mayweather, Corrales, and yet Casamayor, people who none of them I would have beaten in a million years. So luck's the biggest part for anyone. And I think Andrew Selby didn't look great in his last couple of fights, his last fight especially. I think it's the right decision. It just didn't work out for him. And you can keep looking to chase that dream, and I understand that you go for it while you're young. But boxing's a sport where whilst you're going for it, you're losing bits of yourself. I think and also getting punched in the head's not good for anybody. And the longer you do it, the worse it is. So I think it's a pity he never made it as a professional because he had all the ability to do it. But it's the right decision. I wish him well. I do. I wish him well.
Why do you think some top-class amateurs struggle to make a transition? So, for example, Audley Harrison, David Price, Tom Stalker, all, they've done well to a certain level, but never sort of broke through to that world level.
Yeah. Different reasons, I think, but sometimes it's like I box like an amateur as a professional, so I was lucky to even win things, but it's coming off your toes as an amateur, especially the lighter weights, being mobile, and especially when that computer scoring, being mobile and not worrying about the power of the bigger gloves, then you don't have to set yourself. As a professional, because it's a longer distance, people will be happy to take those flicking shots, to sit down and hurt you. And you have to learn when to do that, when to hold your feet and when not to hold your feet. And I think sometimes they struggle with that. The bigger weights, it's with David Price, I think he had a problem with his elbow. He's still fighting now. I might be giving away a secret, but once he lost his jab, he lost his confidence. Once he lost his confidence, then he was just a sitting duck. Being 6'9" or whatever he is, 6'8", whatever he is, and being a puncher, is great. But being 6'8" and having no defense, the jab keeps him away. But without that, you're just a big target to hit, and that's what he was. Audley Harrison, I think, he tried to do too much for himself. You can't see. You have to be the boss of your own career. I think that's the good thing about modern sport now. You can be in charge of your own destiny, whereas before we just did what we were told, which worked. It was a good system, but I mean, they have a control of their career now that you never had before, which is a fantastic thing. But also, when you get in the gym, you can't be your own boss. You can't say, I've done enough to your training, I've done enough today. No, I'll only do 5 rounds today, I won't do 7. You're not pushing yourself over the line. So I think he was too much in control. So then come fight night, the people in his corner, as good as they're all fantastic trainers in their own right, but in that particular scenario, they were just help for hire. That's all they were. No one was telling him what to do. You had some people that trying to, but he didn't want to listen. And I think that was where he fell flat. I'm not saying promoting yourself's not a good thing. I just think, he just did it all himself. How can you be 6'6", a southpaw, an Olympic gold medalist, and not win a world title? He had everything. He had all the ingredients to be a world champion, and he was brilliant. As an amateur, he was fantastic. And he won a European title, which is, fantastic. It was great. But his potential was so much further than that we see him as an underachiever, because his potential was to be something better. But he said one thing in an interview, and I think this sums it up. He said one thing in an interview a long time ago, before his career really went up and down. He said, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be famous. And I think that's where the problem is. Because for me, and for others maybe, when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a champion. Joe Kawasaki when he was a kid, he wanted to be a world champion. He had aspirations beyond mine, but he never met. When you're a kid, you don't think about money and fame when you're a little kid. And all he said he did. And I think that's maybe chasing the wrong goal, the wrong dream, maybe. You're so et about being this superstar, famous person, but if you just focused on being a champion, all that would have come anyway. But then saying that, he is famous. He is a celebrity still to this day, and he earned plenty of money. So who's to say he failed? I think accomplishment-wise, I think he didn't reach his potential, but he earned plenty of money, and he's healthy and he looks good, and everyone knows who he is, and so I'm not remotely jealous.
Absolutely, very interesting. Look at it. Talking of domestic fights earlier, one big one seems like it could be happening next year. Joshua Fury.
Maybe. It's great that they're talking, and I mean, it's really great that they're talking. But that's all it is. I know that's all it is. The fact that I think the sticking points for huge fights are always money. So the fact that if they've agreed terms for that or the percentage splits, then that's great. But there's so many other facets of the game that have to be sorted out. That who knows? And who knows where we're going to be in a year's time? I know the WBC saying that Fury has to box White before he boxes, Joshua. That's not going to happen. I mean, he'll give up that title before you'd think he'd give up that title. If it was White or Joshua, all the money's in the Joshua fight. So even without that WBC title, he'll take that. It's a pity, really. WBC have now upheld their stance at the worst possible time. They should have done this before the second Wilder fight, really. Or before the first Wilder fight with Joshua. Maybe White should have got his shot. No, really.
The WBO are doing the same sort of thing with Usyk. Usyk saying he's not taking step aside money. Does the fight lose any of its appeal if it's not a undisputed?
No, I think it can always sell better if it's undisputed, of course. But I don't think it does lose its appeal. They're two big names, and they don't need it. They don't need those tags. They don't need those belts. These two. This could be a 10-round non-title fight. It's the two best fighters on the planet right now. Proven right now. There might be better fight coming up, but right now, proven they're the two best. And Fury to me is number one. So they don't need belts, I don't think. And there's a worry about belts. Belts, we all chase the belts. We all want the belts, and we're lucky to get them. And you're proud of it. And your career's unfulfilled if you don't pick one up. But something has to change. Something has to change. I understand why they Usyk. If he's number one challenger, Dillian White. Why should he care? For the good of boxing, we wanted to say, "I'll wait for the winner." But for his career, that just stalls it further. Why should he wait? I understand that. Why should hang on? I don't care about Joshua and and Fury. So they can go in there and 50 minutes and both decide to retire then. And then I'm fighting for vacant titles, which is fine, but he wants to fight them because they're bigger paydays and they're world champions. So I understand his stance. But the WBC are coming strong now at the worst possible time because they don't want one champion. They want their own champions because there's more money for them. That's why they don't want to share sanctioning fees with anybody. I think that's an issue. I think there was a need for more organisations because of corruption. Back before I was boxing, obviously WBA was the first, then WBC came in. Obviously, just so you couldn't have a monopoly with one fighter, especially a promoter who's strong with that organisation gets a monopoly. So they get another belt, and that sort of shares it a little bit. But then another pro that gets a monopoly with that organisation. Then the IBF comes in like in the mid '80s, and then WBO in the late '80s, and then where does it end? And now they have two champions in each weight, making Tyson Fury the franchise champion is just ludicrous. That's like the WBA super champion. I don't know how the history will show some of these WBA champions whether they were genuine world champions. Nathan Cleverly, Welshman, the alphabet soup. He is the first. I know Joe Kazagi won the Ring magazine light heavyweight title when he beat Bernard Hopkins and was regarded as a two-weight world champion. But if you're talking about just belts, he never. And he did though, Nathan Cleverly. He was the first two-time world champion for Wales, but he won a WBA regular, where Berbert Shumanov was WBA super champion, and he beat Bramer at the time. So, is he a genuine two-time world champion? He is, and he's not. It's not fair on the kid. That's something to be proud of. Well, saying that, I got to say, I'm digressing a bit. Robbie Regan won an IBF flyweight title, made him Wales his first two-time and two-weight world champion. And then they changed it after the win to an interim title, which took it away from him. So I don't know. It's if Nathan's a two-time world champion, which he deserves to be, fair enough. Then Robbie Regan should be reinstated for Robbie Regan, and he should be Wales' first ever two-weight and two-time world champion. It's crazy. Let me give you an example. A lot of 2014-ish, there was two WBA welterweight titles boxed in this. So it's four people boxed for the same title in the same ring on the same night. And that same night, the WBA light heavyweight title was contested by four fighters on two different continents because of the super and the regular. So but in the same ring, I think it was in Texas. So it might have been, I think Broner boxed somebody, and Karasis, I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, it was crazy. So it's like, four fighters boxed for the same welterweight title on the same night in the same ring. One was WBA welterweight, one was WBA normal, one was WBA super. It's like, how can you sell that idea to a layman who just enjoys sport? Or a TV company? He is champion, but he's franchise, PlayStation thing. It's ridiculous. And people said this when WBO came on, when the IBF came in, and and I understand the reason for it, but someplace you've got to say this is enough. Let's just have the sport, and that's why the World Super Series is that the right pronunciation? Because the Super Six originally was a great idea, and then the World Super Series of boxing. That's a fantastic idea in theory, and it's almost working, where you have the champion, and you know who it is, the best fighters boxing the best for Muhammad Ali Trophy. Don't matter what the trophy's called or what it is, but it's just you've got the best boxing the best, and that's what we want to see. And also, they're earning a fortune from it. That they should. Sugar Ray Leonard got 10 million for boxing. I think he got 10 million for boxing Tommy Hearns. Like way back in the early 80s. Because they was the very best boxing the very best.
If it was you...
what a rant that was.
When you was fighting, if you was the interim champion, would you class yourself as a world champion, or would you want to get the full world title as such?
Well, it's of course you want to get. You're not regarded as it. I think this. But I boxed for the bacon title. So people would say, you box for the vacant, and they'd be sort of right. You box for the vacant title, you know, when you box the champion, and because there was no champion, but you know, it's that sort of taints a little bit if you want to be really critical. So yeah, but the Indian titles, it's not a real. I don't know why they have that. That's just an eliminator. And I understood the need for it when if a champions can't fight for whatever reason, you know, he's injured or contract issues or whatever, then to keep that title busy, that's understandable. And then the champion has to box in. But you've had again, and I couldn't think of a name. I'm pretty sure you've had the interim champion box the same night or the same week, like 7-day period, as the regular champion. So why have an interim champion when you the real champion is active? What's that about? Just have an eliminator. People used to moan about the intercontinental titles back in the 90s because they go, that's just a 10-round international contest over 12 rounds. Why have it? What's the point? Just to give someone a belt. It was a great idea because I got one, but you know, it's again, it's one of those things. The sport trying to just organisations really, and understandably because they're a business, just trying to get more money out of fights. So a sanctionist give you a belt and it gets you a rating. But that's still not. It shouldn't work that way. So if you just box for, it doesn't matter what organisation it is, they're all the same. They all have the same ethos. But if you box for one of their minor regional titles and just keep defending that against, it doesn't matter who, just keep defending that, you will get in the top 5 in the world without really boxing a world-class fighter or anything near that. You could actually box 10 journeymen defending that title and getting the top 5 in the world, which is a risk. Which is a huge risk. Because then when you get to that level, you want some sort of test because you can get hurt. Forget about it being fat. You might get beat. No one cares about game. You don't want to get beat, but you can accept that. But these guys might get seriously hurt. This is duty of care by managers, promoters, and most certainly by organisations. See, I love this sport. I love it. I love it all my life. But it's frustrating because it could be. Listen, I wouldn't be a world without all this bollocks and bullshit. I wouldn't be a world champion. So I benefited from all this rubbish. But I would give that away, and to have it just as to have it as a real gentleman sport. Just as have it as if everything was fair. If everything was fair, I would happily give that back. To be honest, and then however good I was, whatever I got was how good I would have been, not for who I signed with or what little minor title I boxed for. And I think if all boxers felt that way, I think like anything, it has to be done from the people who are involved, not the organisations, the fighters. If they could somehow get together and go, I don't want that, I want to do this. But at the same time, they got to earn a living. So if Frank Warren would have said to me, listen, you've won this title now, you're going to be boxing strawweights for the rest of your career, I would have gone, thanks, Frank. I'm boxing a guy 2 stone lighter than me. I would have done that and took the money and run. That's just life.
Absolutely. Barry, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
It hasn't been a pleasure. I've just moaned and groaned for 40 minutes. But
it's been fantastic. Thank you for your time speaking to us.
All right, cheers, mate. Take care.
Cheers, Barry.